Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays, a podcast on musical encounters and life.
Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays, and I'm so happy to have a guest, Mark Brown. Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays.
What's up? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, so Mark is a New York, Baltimore, Philly, off to LA guy. So usually you hit the West Coast when you're really young. You decided to do it when you're a little older. So how'd that happen?
Well, so the pandemic had a lot to do with it. You know, I've been a touring musician since I was like 25. I started touring with a band from Baltimore for 5 or 6 years, and then when that band stopped touring, I started my own band, Hambone Relay, which was based out of Philly, but we toured up and down the East Coast. And then the pandemic hit. We lost all our work. We had almost 200 shows planned for 2020. We had like the biggest year yet, you know. And I just kind of I lost a little bit, and I went through some depression, and then I said screw it, and I moved to LA.
Right. Well, they always say go west, young man, but you can always go west. So.
Right.
So talk to me, you've toured, and you said, prior to us talking, earlier us talking, you've toured the whole world, right? What's the difference between the West Coast music scene and maybe the East Coast music scene? Do you see a difference in the styles of play, the people, obviously, the venues? What's the difference?
The biggest difference as far as touring and playing music is everything is so far apart on the West Coast.
Yes.
So if you want to go to the next biggest market, it's like a 6-hour drive out here. Whereas we were based out of Philly, we could hit 4 states in a weekend.
Right. Right. And you could hit major cities, right? That's how they set up the tours, right? You just go down the whole East Coast. Yeah.
Yeah. We would do Philly, Baltimore, New York, and Boston in 5 days, you know, it was great. And every drive was no more than 6 hours.
Right. And out west, LA to San Francisco is a haul, and then, maybe you go to Vegas or something. It's yes, that's interesting. So talk a little bit about you've been in many bands. Talk about traveling overseas and touring overseas. What was that experience like, and how did that manifest?
So when I first joined the Bridge from Baltimore, we played a festival, weirdly named the Blue Balls Festival. I think it didn't translate very well, and it was in Switzerland. And we played that festival in this old 3,000-year-old castle hall thing. It was really crazy. And there were some big headlines. Macy Gray played that festival, and I think Keith Richards played it. It was a big deal. And I had just joined the band, and it was awesome. And then from there, I've played in Germany. Where else? We played Jam in the Dam in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
That was really cool. But yeah, most of my international playing was done with the Bridge.
Awesome. And your expertise instrument is what do you focus on?
Hammond organ, but keyboards. I play piano as well. I started on piano, but I'm primarily a Hammond organ player.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of the Hammond organ sound, right? I'm a big Bob Dylan fan. So you have that those just power chords of great songs, and you're you almost don't even hear it, but you're what is that unique sound, right? And I think of the band, right? So I feel that instrument is not alive and kicking today with a lot of modern bands, or am I just not hearing it?
No, it is. I think it's very prevalent with a lot of bigger bands, but a lot of guys. I mean, it's a huge organ. I have a gig this weekend, so before we did this interview, I just loaded mine into my trailer.
Right.
So it's most guys just get small keyboards, which can pretty much emulate the sound okay, but the bigger bands like John Mayer's of the world, they all travel with V3 players.
Yeah.
It's a big part of the sound that you hear. Even in pop music, it's not just I'm a jam band guy, but not just that music, pop music as well. It's a huge part of the sound, but a lot of guys just don't want to load it around anymore.
And that's probably inside information to non-players like myself. Oh, you actually have to move the equipment, right? There's not roadies with every band, right?
No.
Yeah.
I have it. I probably have a really bad back, now, but,
Yeah.
but I have it all rigged up. I can do it all myself. I have a trailer and a ramp and pulleys and ratchet straps, and I got a whole system. I can do it myself.
So talk about Hambone Relay. How did that come to fruition, and what was the kind of, how did that group all come together, and describe your sound a little bit? Because it's right up my alley, a little jammy and bluesy and funk, and really cool sound. And I will share the links on Rock and Roll Friday, and everyone should check out Hambone Relay. Yeah, talk about the band.
Sure. So after the Bridge stopped touring, I've always loved the sound of an organ trio, which would be organ, guitar, and drums, no bass, and then the organ player plays bass with his left hand.
Yeah.
And so I've always like Soul Live I'm a huge fan of Soul Live.
Yeah.
And we started out, so after the Bridge broke up, I got some guys in Philly and we got together and we started just jamming like jazz tunes as an organ trio. And we started writing, and our writing became this more jammy, funk, psychedelic rock kind of thing. And it just kind of morphed. And then those guys left the band, and I got two new guys that are on the albums that you listen to. And we started touring, and we started out as a Soul Live cover band. Actually, the first 5 songs we learned were Soul Live tunes.
Yeah.
And then from there we started writing and expanding, and then we have like 3 albums of original music and like 3 live albums too.
Awesome. Yeah. And what I know you're playing shows out in LA. What's your schedule for the band? What's kind of coming up, or what's the goal to make it happen?
Well, so there's a West Coast version of Hambone Relay, right? So I hired 2 guys out here. I have an East Coast version, which are the guys on the albums, and then a West Coast version. And the West Coast version is actually playing tonight in Hollywood at Madame Siam. Actually, that's why I had to load my stuff up.
You're gonna have to clone yourself.
I know, right? Well, and then the funny thing is, and then in June I have to fly. In June I'm flying out to the East Coast. We're playing a wedding, and then we're doing a couple of club shows. So awesome. I'm doing a little bit of. We just did an East Coast tour in September with the East Coast guys. So
awesome. And what venues will you playing in on the East Coast?
We play West Virginia. We play Virginia Beach a lot. Ouzel Finch Brewing Company, we play there a lot. Richmond, we used to play Cary Street Cafe. That place closed because of the pandemic. Martin's downtown in Roanoke, we play a lot. We're trying to book. We have a new album. We recorded a new album at the beginning of the pandemic, and we're going to release it at the end of this year and do a Philly show to promote it.
Yeah. Very cool. So what, being on the East Coast, what were some of your bands that you gravitated to and influences that you really took to as a musician and a fan?
Well, I grew up listening to like the 90s jam band scene. Not really Fish so much, but like Mo. I was a huge Mo fan. Humphreys.
Yeah.
Mo
used to play the TLA for very, very cheap dollars back in the day. I did many Mo shows on a Tuesday night for, God, it was probably $15 back then, right? So,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Mo fan for sure, and they're from upstate New York, where I'm from originally. So I remember seeing them like for free at like a General Clinton's pub in the 90s.
Right.
Early 90s.
And I always talk about this, right? Like, I mean, the Beatles started at the Cavern Club or wherever, right? Every band starts, in their aunt's or uncle's garage, right? Like, you start out, in Philly, you see the stories and hear the stories of bands playing at JC Dobbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got to start somewhere. So what I ask all my guests, what is it about music? I mean, you became a touring musician. You're obviously involved in music, love of music. What is it? Why, what is it about music?
Well, I've always played music since I was a little kid. I've always loved music, especially live music. I think there's something about live music that just you can't beat. There's something about going to see a band play and having them play something completely different than what's on their album,
which we missed the last 2 years, right? I mean, the pandemic really took that away. And this spring and summer and fall, it looks like all these bands are getting back out there and the fans are coming back, which is great to see.
And that's I think that's, for me, that was it. It was like I just started playing in front of people from a young age. I had a band in high school when I was 14 that played like bars. Our parents would have to go with us,
They probably loved it.
Yeah, they did. It was great, and we played for like biker bars and stuff, and it was fun, man. We played like classic rock, and it was great.
Yeah.
So, and I've always loved performing. And then I my first gig out of college, I did like a Broadway review kind of show, and it was okay. It paid really well, but I didn't really love it. And then I started touring, and I was like, I didn't look back. I've toured ever since. So
awesome. You've been all over the world. You've been East Coast, West Coast, and obviously the premise of Rock and Roll Fridays is musical encounters. And I'm sure you have a story to tell about an artist or band that you're like, how did I get into this moment, right?
Right. Yeah, I do actually. So I mentioned Soul Live at the beginning of this interview. So Soul Live, Neal Evans, who's the organ player in Soul Live, he's one of my idols. I remember I saw Soul Live open for Mo actually in like 95 or something. It was a long time ago. And I love him. They're great. So anyway, he's also in a band called Lettuce, right?
Oh yeah.
They're a big funk band.
Yeah.
And the band The Bridge we played a festival where we were playing the sunrise set. So we played the main stage at like 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or something, right? And right before us, Lettuce played. So this is a psychedelic drug story. I hope that's so. We had also
people are either waking up or still up, right? It's like, which way is the sun turning?
Well, so we had also decided this was our last tour. We had decided we were breaking up. So we were all like, let's party. We don't care, good. So we ate some LSD. And I probably had a little, I don't normally do psychedelics. So I probably had a little more than I probably should have. And so they had a Hammond organ backline on stage, right? And I get on stage and Lettuce finishes their set and they're packing up. And I turn the organ on, and the way the organ works, it has these tone wheels that spin, right? And I turn it on and I go and I can hear the tone wheels spinning and I'm just starting to trip. I'm just like, and I play a chord on the organ and the pitches go, right? They sound like they're bending. Now, with a Hammond B3, if the power situation is not good, it's possible that could happen, right?
Yeah.
Well, all I could think of was, Jesus, I'm like tripping my face.
Yeah.
What's happening? You know? And I'm like starting to panic. So I turned to our bass player and I was like, hey man, can you get somebody? I'm kind of freaking out. This organ doesn't work or something, right? He was like, sure, man, I'll go see what I thought he was going to like grab like a tech, like a stagehand or something. But he grabbed Neal Evans.
That's awesome.
And he brings Neal Evans out to talk to me. And I'm like, my pupils are huge. And I'm like, just like looking at him like, he's like, are you okay, man? And I'm like, dude, you're Neal. I said right this way, dude, you're Neal Evans.
Yeah.
And I was like, can you help me with this organ? And he just looked at me like, dude, it's the generator. And it was, what had happened was the generator they had to restart it for the stage we were on. And there was a problem with it. And so like the tone wheels weren't spinning up to speed. And so it wasn't me. The organ actually wasn't working right.
Well, it wasn't you and it wasn't the LSD.
And it wasn't right.
It was the generator.
And so here's my hero who I've played with before, I've shared the stage with, but I never met him, and I was like super stoked. I thought like we'd get a chance to meet him backstage or something. And then like, who do they bring out with Neal Evans? And I can't even talk to him except tell him who it is.
Yeah. That is awesome. That is great.
But a lot, like you always encounter people like that on the road. And he was super nice about it and everything. He was like, he kind of took me by the shoulders and sat me down at the organ. He's like, you're all right, bro. And he just walked away.
Yeah.
But,
like the hand of God. It's all,
right.
It's all going to be good.
Right. So.
Well, awesome. Mark, this has been a great chat. And I want everyone to check out Hambone Relay, whether the West Coast version, East Coast version. But, when you come back to the Philly side, we should definitely, we'll definitely promote the band and the shows. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, man. Likewise. Thank you.
Awesome.